If you are new here, welcome to Beginner Finance Immigrants. This channel exists for one reason: to help immigrants, international students, and newcomers understand the American financial system in simple, honest, and practical language. No complicated terms, no confusion, just clear answers to the questions nobody is explaining to you. I am your host here at Beginner Finance Immigrants, and if this is your first time on this channel, I want you to know something. Everything we talk about here is researched, verified, and made specifically for people like you. People who are navigating a brand new country and a brand new financial system at the same time. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what we are about to talk about today is one of the most important topics for any immigrant living in America in 2026. And trust me, you do not want to miss what is coming next on this channel. Now, before we get into today's topic, I want you to imagine something. You walked into a bank, you had your passport, you had your documents, you were ready, and then the person at the counter asked you, "Are you a citizen?" And in that moment, you felt like the door was closing on you before it even opened. If that has happened to you, or you are worried it will happen, this video is exactly for you. Because today, I am going to tell you something that most immigrants and students in the USA do not know. Your bank is not allowed to deny you just because you are not a citizen. And I am going to prove it to you step by step with real laws and real facts. Stay with me until the end, because I am also going to tell you about a very important political change happening right now in 2026 that could affect every single immigrant who uses a US bank. You need to know this. So let us start from the very beginning. When you come to the USA, whether you are a student on an F1 visa, a worker on an H-1B, or someone who just arrived, one of the first things you need is a bank account. You need it to receive your salary, you need it to pay rent, you need it to build your credit score and your entire financial future in this country. Without a bank account, you are carrying cash everywhere, and that is dangerous, expensive, and it is keeping you invisible in the financial system. Now here is what most people believe, and it is completely wrong. Most immigrants think that to open a bank account in America, they need to be a citizen, or they need a green card, or they need a social security number. None of that is true. And I am not just saying this. This comes directly from federal law. Here is the real rule. In the United States, banks are legally required to verify your identity. That is it. They are not required to verify your citizenship. There is a law called the USA Patriot Act, and it tells banks they must run something called a customer identification program. What does that program ask for? Your name, your date of birth, your address, and an identification number. That identification number can be your social security number, or it can be something called an ITIN, and that changes everything. So what is an ITIN? ITIN stands for Individual Taxpayer Identification Number. It is issued by the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, which is the US government's tax agency. And here is the most important thing about an ITIN. You do not need to be a citizen to get one. You do not need a green card. You can be here on any visa or even without one. An ITIN is available to anyone, regardless of immigration status. You apply using a form called W-7, which you can get directly from the IRS website. Once you have your ITIN, most major banks in the USA will open an account for you. Let me make this even simpler. Think of an ITIN as your financial passport. It tells the bank, this person is real, this person pays taxes, this person is in the system. That is all the bank needs. Now, which banks actually accept ITIN? Bank of America is one of the most flexible. They are actually the only major bank that can open an account for you with just a foreign passport and proof of address. No ITIN even required for their basic account. Chase Bank accepts ITIN. Wells Fargo accepts ITIN and has long served immigrant communities. Citibank accepts ITIN with no minimum deposit needed for their basic account. PNC Bank accepts ITIN, and their monthly fee is only $7, which can be waived if you keep at least $500 in your account. And local credit unions, especially ones that are part of something called the Juntos Avanzamos program. These are specifically designed for immigrants, and they often accept consular ID cards that other banks will not. Now I need to tell you one thing that trips a lot of people up. If you are using an ITIN instead of a social security number, you almost always cannot open your account online. You need to go to a physical bank branch in person. Bring your original documents and photocopies. Bring your ITIN. Bring your passport. Bring proof of your address. That could be a utility bill, a lease agreement, or even a letter from your employer. And if the teller at the counter tells you it cannot be done, do not give up. Ask to speak with the branch manager. This is very important. Tellers at the front desk often do not know their own bank's ITIN policy. The manager will. Now let me talk about something that I promised you earlier, the political situation that is happening right now in 2026. Because this is urgent, and you deserve to know. Earlier this year, the Trump administration was preparing an executive order that would require U.S. banks to collect and report the immigration status of every account holder. That means not just your identity, but whether you are documented or undocumented. Banks, Wall Street, and community lenders pushed back hard. They called it unworkable. The order has been delayed, but, and this is very important, it has not been canceled. The Treasury Department still has the authority to impose this kind of rule through existing banking regulations without needing a new law. Senator Tom Cotton also introduced a bill called the Know Your American Customer Act that would make it a federal crime for undocumented immigrants to have a U.S. bank account. These things are not law yet, but they are being discussed seriously at the highest levels of government. So if you have a bank account, keep an eye on this. And if you do not have one yet, open it now, while the rules are still on your side. Now I want to talk about your legal protections, because you have more rights than you think. First, your financial records are protected by something called the Right to Financial Privacy Act. This means the government cannot just walk into your bank and ask for your information. They need a court order. Second, if a bank closes your account for any reason, they are legally required to return every single dollar to you. Third, if you live in California, you have an extra layer of protection. California has a law called the Unruh Civil Rights Act, under Civil Code Section 51. This law explicitly says that banks in California cannot discriminate against you based on your immigration status, citizenship, national origin, or ancestry. If a bank in California denies you service because of your immigration status, that bank can be sued, and the minimum fine is $4,000 per violation. So if you are in California and a bank turns you away for no real reason, you have legal options. There is also a very new development that just happened in June 2025. The OCC, the FDIC, and the NCUA, these are the three main federal banking regulators in the U.S. They jointly issued a new order. This order gives banks more flexibility in how they verify your tax identification number. Now a bank can get that information from a third party, rather than requiring it directly from you during the account opening process. What does this mean for you? It means some banks may now have an easier time opening accounts for immigrants and non-citizens. When you go to your bank, you can ask them, have you adopted the new CIP exemption from June 2025? If they say yes, your process may be smoother. Now let me walk you through the most common mistakes immigrants make when trying to open a bank account, because I want you to walk in prepared. The first mistake is going to the wrong bank. Not every bank is immigrant-friendly. Some smaller or more conservative banks may not have staff trained in ITIN accounts, and they may turn you away simply because they do not know their own policy. Stick with the banks I mentioned: Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, Citibank, PNC, or find a local credit union through the Juntos Avanzamos network. The second mistake is trying to open the account online. As I told you, with ITIN, you must go in person. Many people try online, get rejected or stuck, and then assume they cannot get an account at all. That is not true. You just need to go to the branch. The third mistake is not having proof of address. This is one of the biggest reasons people get rejected. You need something with your name on it, showing a U.S. address. If you just arrived and do not have a bill yet, a signed lease agreement works. An employer letter works. Even a letter from a friend saying you are staying with them may work at some banks. Ask the specific bank what they accept before you go. The fourth mistake is having a bad history in check systems. When you open a U.S. bank account, most banks check a database called check systems. If you previously had a bank account in the U.S. that was closed for negative reasons, like unpaid overdrafts, check systems will flag you and most banks will reject you. If this is your situation, look for banks or credit unions that do not use check systems, or look for what are called second chance checking accounts. The fifth mistake, and this is one nobody tells you, is not knowing about the hidden fees. Banks are not always upfront about this. Many accounts have monthly maintenance fees between $7 and $12 if you do not meet certain conditions. International wire transfer fees can be $25 to $45 every time you send money home. Out-of-network ATM fees are typically $2.50 to $5 every use. If you do not opt out, some banks charge you for paper statements, and if your account has no activity for 6 to 12 months, you may be charged an inactivity fee. Read the fee schedule before you open the account. Ask the banker directly, what fees will I be charged and how do I avoid them? So here's what I want you to take away from this video. You do not need to be a U.S. citizen to open a bank account. You do not need a social security number if you have an ITIN. Banks are legally required to verify your identity, not your citizenship. The most important documents you need are a valid photo ID like your passport, your ITIN or SSN, and proof of a U.S. address. Go in person to an immigrant-friendly bank or credit union. If a teller says no, ask for the manager. Know your rights under the Right to Financial Privacy Act. And if you are in California and a bank discriminates against you, you have real legal power. And one final thing. The political environment around immigrant banking is changing in 2026. The window of access you have right now is real, but it may not look the same 6 months from now. So if you have been waiting, stop waiting. Get your ITIN, gather your documents, and walk into that bank with confidence. You belong in the financial system. The law says so. If this video helped you, share it with someone who just moved to the USA. They need this information more than they know. And check the description below. I have put together a document checklist you can download and bring with you to the bank. Knowing your rights before you walk in is your single most powerful protection. I will see you in the next video.